Live, and we're coming to you from the quickly disappearing city of New York. My goodness, you know the best business to be in this city? The moving business. You can't get a moving truck. Mayor Adams has done a really good job of chasing people out of the city. Wow. This was unanticipated. When he was running, the whole issue was, would he bring crime down? Because he was a cop. Now, some crimes have gone down this year, but a lot of crimes have gone up this year. And the net result of his 2 years is an increase in all crimes. So at this point in his mayoralty, 2 years into it, he has basically his historical footnote would be that he increased crime to levels higher than de Blasio. And I don't think anyone wants to increase crime to levels higher than de Blasio. He has created a catastrophic homeless migrant problem. I say created because it is true that his fellow Democrat, I'll just say Joe Biden. I'm tired of calling him names. I mean, it doesn't do any good. And hopefully somebody at some point is going to develop just the slightest bit of love for this country and make a serious attempt to remove him either under the 25th Amendment or the impeachment clause. It's a disgrace that he's in the White House. We're going to point that out tonight because there are a whole group of things I think need to be pointed out because the censorship Biden regime news will prevent you from hearing it. I think you are hearing, however, about the hurricane, Idalia. And Idalia has now hit land, as I think you all know. It's gone through and done quite a bit of damage on the west coast of Florida, Tampa, heading north now, heading kind of northeast across the state of Florida. And of course, Florida borders on Georgia, as I imagine you know. So Atlanta seems to be close to, the last time I looked, the trajectory, but it might be moving a little bit more toward the ocean. Now, if you had to deal with hurricanes like I did in New York, not in the same way that the governors of, let's say, Florida and Louisiana and Texas and have to deal with it, but we had our share of them. You get to know about them. And one of the better things is when they get out over ocean because they begin to dissipate. Now, the opposite also happens. If they come back to land, when they hit land, they get re-energized. There also is an effect that I didn't have to deal with when I was mayor, but I didn't know about it and was warned about it, called the blue moon effect. Now, it's called the blue moon. You know the expression once in a blue moon? That comes from the blue moon because it's very rare. It happens very rarely. And what actually it is, a little more of the moon exposes itself. So with a little more of the moon exposing itself, that has an enormous impact on the tides, which means that the ocean flooding could be much more severe. And I think, and I'll check for you. Maybe Ted could check, or Rob, while I'm shooting my mouth off. I think that's supposed to happen tomorrow night, around the time it gets to Georgia, North Carolina. Now, let me just point out, because I would have just assumed it's when I always would hear the expression once in a blue moon. And then I think he'd have some romantic songs about the blue moon. Not that I know what they are, like, we're going to fall in love under the blue moon. Or think that could be a song? Maybe I could get like Charles Anthony. Blue moon will get rid of the rich men north of Atlanta. When they see it, they'll all run. Something like that.
The super moon, blue moon, 9:36 p.m.
When?
Eastern tonight. So
Tonight.
Mayor, the blue moon is the second of 2 full moons in a single month. So once in a blue moon,
yeah,
So
happens
a
ra-
blue
but
moon
happens rarely.
means this, if there's a second
Yeah.
full moon within 1
And the
month,
second one's the big one.
that's the blue moon.
And it happens how often, does it say?
Well, each month usually hosts only one full moon.
Right.
But blue moons sometimes arise because the lunar cycle is actually 29 and a half days long,
But I mean,
not 30.
I looked at it quickly. I know I didn't bring away with me an estimate of how long does it happen every year, every 2 years, every 3 years.
Well, if it's 29 and a half, if a cycle is actually 29 and a half days as opposed to
It doesn't happen
30
every month though.
No, that means it probably happens once every 60 months.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
If they're off, if it's off half a day. I don't know. I'm not a math guy. But think about
So
it.
every
30
7 or 8
days,
years.
it's half a day off.
So every 6 or 7 years it happens.
60 months every 5 years.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it happens rarely. And
Once in a blue moon, you could say.
sometimes you don't see it because of clouds, so we don't know if we'll see it. And I don't know if it has the same impact if it's covered by clouds.
That's a good point.
But in any event, it does have an impact, and will make the hurricane worse. In the sense of the churning in the ocean will be worse, and some of the calming down to the ocean usually won't be as effective. Okay. So that now you have exhausted all my knowledge on. Do not ask a question, Rob.
It sounds like the climate is changing.
Do not ask a question, Rob. I don't think I can fake it.
The climate is changing then?
You know, people ask me this all the time. Mayor, do you believe in climate change? Well, of course I do. I even know the climates. I'm a music fan. How wouldn't I know Vivaldi's The Seasons or Haydn's terrific oratorio, The Seasons? And they have the same seasons. Summer, right? What comes after summer? Fall, winter, spring. Oh, I could do it the other way around too. I bet Joe Biden can. So there is a book coming out next week called The Last Politician. I think it is inaptly named, and you'll see why in a minute. And it's written by a guy named Franklin Foer, Foer. Don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I do not know the gentleman. It is excerpted this week in Atlantic magazine, which I refuse to buy. If you want to send me a copy because you already paid for it, fine. But don't go out and buy it because there's no good comes from supporting these Marxists. And it is very critical of Biden, which I would say, if I was sitting in the White House, would make me extraordinarily nervous if Atlantic, which is infected with massive Trump derangement disease, I mean, massive. I think it's like you have several levels of Trump derangement disease. They are at the close to, it's time to lock them up. You know, I don't mean in a prison. I wouldn't suggest, I don't want to punish them. I want to get them treatment. It's time to get them for some quick emergency psychiatric help when you read some of their columns. I've read some of their articles. It's hard to find anything truthful in it. But in any event, I don't read them. People come to me with it. They show me something. I say, that's not true. It never happened. I know, nope, that's not right. But in any event, they have this excerpt now from The Last Politician. First of all, I dispute the type. He's not a politician. He's just a major jackass. I mean, politician has a very bad name, but not as bad as Biden. Biden has not known what he was doing from the day he got into the Senate and said, under some ridiculous, strange set of circumstances, that he could easily have been corrupted during the Senate process, but he didn't, because they raised a lot of money for him. I'm pretty close to quoting that almost exactly accurately. I heard it last night on television. He looked like he was about 15 years old at the time. Probably was 29 because he got elected at 29. He was just in time for the House, I think, or the Senate or whatever. And he said, you know, the way they raise money, it's so, but I didn't have to do that because I could easily have been corrupted. Pretty Freudian, huh? Predicted a whole career. He predicted a whole career. So when they really write the true book, I can't imagine this guy. Well, I have a test for him as to whether he really is a worthwhile writer or he isn't. So according to him, Biden is constantly complaining about being tired in the White House. He has a very hard time finishing sentences. So basically, what we see, the nursing home performance that we see every day, I guess, is repeated behind closed doors. So you wonder about the patriotism of these people with him because they see that this is a man that is in some very, very extended stage of dementia. Now, in addition to their worrying about this book, which I still don't think is going to be really honest, and I'm going to give you the test of that in a minute. What happened to McConnell today, and they would really have to be quite stupid not to be worried about it. This could happen to Biden, and I've been telling you this for a couple of years. At any time, the disease of dementia is one progressive, which is the same 1984 use of the word progressive that when the Democrats describe themselves as progressive, and in fact they are completely retrogressive. In fact, they're Neanderthal because they want to go back to the Marxist system that failed 100 years ago, and also is responsible for more taking of lives than any other political system I know of. And if you want to consider Nazism a form of socialism, we could really even expand it more. But the real question is, what? How does he approach foreign policy? And I don't know if the book is only about foreign policy or it isn't. According to Mr. Franklin Fear, Biden is extremely arrogant about his lack of knowledge of foreign policy. He thinks he knows it all. He does not follow the advice of his advisors because he thinks he is smarter than they are, which is highly unlikely because I have not yet met a person as dumb as Joe. So I don't think a lot of the people around him, but I can guarantee you they're all smarter than he is. I seriously doubt that any of them were left back in the third grade. I think he was. I'm not sure of that. I am sure that he was a terrible law student because one of his colleagues in law school introduced me to him years ago and told me, Joe is a really nice guy, but boy, he is pathetically dumb. And people didn't want to sit next to him because he used to cheat. Sound like the Joe we got in the White House? The Last Politician. It's going to come out on September 5th. It's in the Atlantic right now. Don't buy it. See if somebody will give it to you. Go to the library. Joe Biden possessed a swaggering faith in himself, which has to be compensation for always being the dumbest kid in class. Now, you want to watch that, and if you know anything about psychology, you watch that in that time 30 years ago, the beginning of his career, when he starts in with this garbage about how he's got a higher IQ than the guy. He doesn't have a higher IQ than anybody. And that he had 5 degrees, he had only 2, that he had a scholarship to school. He virtually, hung on to staying in school by the skin of his teeth and by cheating. And that he finished very high in his class. He was like 4th from last. I mean, it was just one lie after another lie after another lie. All of it, not the product of a swaggering faith in himself. I hope this guy is smart enough to realize that what that is a display of enormous lack of confidence in yourself. I mean, if you can't see that, Franklin, I don't know, you shouldn't be writing books, kid. He does quote Gates. Now, this is a stunning statement that Gates made, who was an exceedingly smart man and an exceedingly responsible man. Gates wrote at the end of the Obama administration that Biden was wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue over the past 4 decades. He considers everybody else risk adverse, beholden to institutions, and lazy in their thinking. Well, he's not really lazy in his thinking because he really isn't really capable of it. And he's beholden to the institutions that give him a lot of money. And risk adverse, I don't even think he knows what that means. This is the guy that didn't want to kill bin Laden. Is one of the many things that the entire administration was on the other side. And then he says, foreign policy is really, really easy. Foreign policy guys, you foreign policy guys, you think this is all pretty complicated, but it's just like family dynamics. Holy God. He's going to handle foreign policy like his family, his perverted family? Give me a break. Is that the reason he screws up on foreign policy? He handles it like the Biden crime family? Whoa. You need emotional intelligence. He doesn't have any form of intelligence. So I don't know what this guy's analysis really leads to. And then they point out that he followed no one's advice on Afghanistan. He just, and then the decision for which he will live in infamy, giving up Bagram Air Base. Bagram Air Base, if you would put on the picture, Bagram Air Base is so strategic. Now, I have to tell you that General Milley, in order to cover for his incompetent president, and because General Milley was the one who was going to tell China if Trump attacked them, who may in fact be suspect, said that it really wasn't strategically, Bagram Air Base was not strategically important. Now, can we cast doubt on one of two things about General Milley? Well, how about just his plain intelligence? The Bagram Air Base, you see it. I don't know if you can see it there. It's where the circle is. You will see that if you go out to the right, it is 400 miles from key positions in China and about 600 miles from a nuclear facility that it could take out if it had to in minutes, an hour. It is 500 miles from our deadly enemy, Iran. And it's not much more from Russia. You want to get a better air base than that? Try. When he gave it up, because they were still in the let's protect him mode, they were pretty careful not to rip him apart, which if they were loyal Americans, they would have. But even the New York Times criticized it, and the Wall Street Journal went further. Wall Street Journal, William Lloyd Stearman, who was on the National Security Council staff under 4 presidents, and he's the author of several books on national security, wrote, the Biden administration decision to remove all U.S. forces from Afghanistan could cost the country an important strategic asset, the Bagram Air Base. Bagram is 40 miles north of Kabul, and it's very impressive in size. The installation covers about 30 square miles. It has a 12,000-foot runway. It can accommodate almost any U.S. military aircraft of any size. It's only 400 miles west of China, 500 miles east of Iran, and this is an understatement of the year. This is a good place to have American assets. Thank you, General Milley. What is it? Are you a liar? You corrupt? What is it? What is it with you? You can't tell the truth. I mean, a 12-year-old history student would look at that map and say, wow, that's a pretty good strategic asset. What, did you just sell your soul completely, Milley? Just sell your soul completely, huh? someday it is quite possible that an American president is going to be in a war with China. They're going to want to know who the hell gave up that air base. And I hope they got your picture right on it, so maybe they'll rip it down. Because Biden, we blame it on two things. He's stupid, or three things: stupid, senile, and crooked. I don't know. Are you any of those things? It also, if we kept it, would ensure the country doesn't return to being a base for terrorists, which it has. So, I mean, right at the very beginning here, before we get to all of the other things he did to get people killed in Afghanistan, he gave up an enormously strategic base that if you didn't know that he got millions and millions from China, you would suspect that he did. Of course, there can't be another rational explanation for doing China such a massive favor. 40 miles from Kabul, 30 square miles of lethal airbase, 12,000-foot runway. Any aircraft that we have can be sent into China in minutes from there, very close to a nuclear facility, almost as close to the would-be nuclear power Iran, and almost as close to Russia. I would say, if you aren't insane, the only other thing you could be is a traitor, giving it away. Now, remember, it gets much worse than that, because let's see if the fearless Mr. Franklin Fear, let's see if he even asks about Bagram. Because if he doesn't, he's a miserable sellout. How can you ask about Afghanistan and not ask about giving up one of the most strategic bases we had to defend ourselves against China for no apparent reason? The fact that we were leaving Afghanistan almost had nothing to do with it. We keep air bases all over the world. Hell with Afghanistan. That was important to us. I mean, when they said they weren't going to do America first, really didn't think to substitute China first. Should have looked at the flow of the money, though. And then you would have seen China first. Now, Biden is also an American president that has to be fighting for the top of the list and getting more people killed because of his decisions, whether they're incompetent or they're corrupt, or maybe a combination of both. The number of people that died in Afghanistan, even dying today, I'd say exaggerated by 70 to 80% by him. Just taking out the military before the civilians and taking out Bagram Air Base, which a number of these critics, and I think even Mr. Fear points out, would have been a much safer way to bring everyone out. And the 13 people who he has gone out of his way to hurt and insult would have, the 13 people would be alive today, and there would have been no one for him to hurt and insult. But I mean, you realize the picture I'm showing you now was taken when those 13 people were brought back and there was a ceremony for them. Every family member saw him looking at his wristwatch. Remember when George Bush did that during a debate? They went crazy. I mean, a debate is a debate. A solemn ceremony, bringing home 13 Americans who were killed because of the incompetent decisions of that jackass. And he's looking at his watch. Does it remind you of the no comment on Maui? And they reminded him of it this week, the families did, because he also told them that he could really feel for them because his son died in combat, except they knew he was lying. His son did not die in combat. I mean, what did he want to do? He got their kids killed. I can't think of another American president that would have been as stupid as he was to take out the troops before there's like a little thing called simple elementary logic. The country's surrounded by 4 terrorist groups. The terrorist groups are angry at the people in the country that helped us. And as soon as they can, want to get at them to kill them. So now it's your job to reward the people that you promised you were going to protect, unless you're a complete slime like he is. It's your job to do the best to save them. The best to save them is to keep your military there, keep your massive air base going. Even if you were going to sell it out to China for $31 million, wait a while. He already had his money. You stay at the air base. You use the air base for the evacuation. You keep a large number of troops there. When the civilians are gone, the troops leave. I would say anybody over the age of about 15 could figure that out. I mean, or is there no one in his administration that says to him, Mr. President, responsible people do it the other way around? Like responsible, normal presidents, not complete idiots like you, take the people out first. They're the ones that need the protection. You see, the military have things called guns, and they can protect themselves, nitwit. So I'm telling you, whatever number of people died in Afghanistan and continue to die, it would have been 70 to 80% less, not just under Trump, but under any president with a brain. The Grom is corruption. The death of the people that we owed protection to is his massive, unbelievable incompetence and the fraud that was perpetrated on us and making us president. It's a direct result of hiding the hard drive, pretending that he's competent, lying about him, and not taking seriously what Gates said, which he hasn't made a correct decision on foreign policy in his life. Don't you think Gates was telling us, I know the guy, he shouldn't be president? You don't say that about someone unless that's what you're trying to get across. Now, it isn't just in Afghanistan that he got people killed. It's even clearer that the people in Ukraine would be alive today if Trump was president. Trump asserts that they would not have attacked. But we don't need Trump's assertion. We don't even need Putin's. We just need to look at history. So Putin has invaded 3 times under 4 American presidents. Well, he invaded under 3. He had actually a streak going. He invaded Georgia under Bush and, basically stuck his tongue out at him. And Bush did something really like nothing. Then he did it under Obama, and Obama, according to Poroshenko, helped him, and Biden helped him by giving him pea shooters. Poroshenko told me, we've always been friendly with the other side, meaning the Democrats, but I got to tell you, your guy was a lot better than me. He actually gave me arms. Biden and Obama gave me pea shooters to try to fight off the Russians. He meant they weren't giving him guns. But Putin invades under Bush, Putin invades under Obama, Putin invades under Biden. Now, there's a president we're missing here, isn't there? In the middle of all that, there's a president called Trump. It just so happens that's the 4 years in which he doesn't do anything because he is afraid of him in a responsible way. And Trump, who they're horrible to. Trump had made one of the wisest statements I can remember about 7 or 8 months ago when he was being interviewed. And he said, well, how did you keep him under control? He said, I told him if he invaded, if he went any further, while I'm on board in Ukraine, I was going to attack Moscow. And they said, did he believe you? He said, no, but maybe 10%.
Right.
I mean, all you have to do is scare them.
Yeah.
I don't even mean scare them. It isn't scare. It's something. Putin is a very smart man, a horrible man, but a smart man. Sometime I'll describe to you my observation of him wearing a Biden down and testing him out and basically making a fool out of him in the 2 months before he invaded Ukraine. He made him say so often, it was like some kind of a sadomasochistic sexual humiliation. He made him say, no troops, no troops, no, we will not use any troops. No troops, no troops, no troops, there'll be no troops, no troops, no troops. Oh, Putin, please. Oh, even if it's just a small invasion, we won't do anything, Putin. No, we won't do anything. Please, Putin, please, Putin. I'm exaggerating a bit, but I mean, he watched him in Afghanistan. He watched him say 500 times, no boots on the ground. And he said, what do I have here? I got a coward, a living coward. This guy wouldn't kill bin Laden. But he made sure he got all the juice out of the orange before he attacked. So there was no doubt that this guy was going to be urinating in his pants at the thought that maybe he would have to do something. And I don't know if that's before or after he defecated in his pants with the Pope. But this is a coward. Yeah. So all those people alive, if they hadn't withheld the hard drive. And finally, what about all the people that die of fentanyl that only comes into this country because we don't stop anybody? And it's coming in at rates 3 and 4 times ever before under any president. And it just keeps going up and up and up. And now it gets combined with Trank, which reverses the fentanyl, so it's going to go up even further. He's getting a whole group of young people slaughtered so China can make a fortune. And don't tell me that China doesn't figure into that. China did not give that family well over 31 million because Joe was giving them advice on cocaine production, because that's about the only thing he knows about how to smoke a cocaine pipe while you're driving a car, or how to pick out, the best prostitute in the whorehouse, which is things Joe knows about. So we will be back after this brief message, an important one. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and Pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Welcome back. Was that T2T?
That's right.
Get your $11 in. All right. Just take a little time, go T2T.org, hit the little thing with your credit card for $11 a month, and you are going to feel much better about yourself. I guarantee you. You're also going to feel better about yourself. If you join me, you should make it a practice. If you watch the show, last night we had over 500,000 people, right, Ted?
Yeah,
Just on
now, probably over 6 now.
just on Twitter, not counting all the rest of you. So, I think you should make it a practice to like, we could do it together like a family. You order yours at balanceofnature.com, promo code Rudy. You get 35% off the biggies. You get $25 off the travel pack. And have your fruit and your vegetables. Nothing is more fundamental to a healthy diet than fruits and vegetables. And it's hard to make sure you get enough. Sometimes, some days maybe you do, some days maybe you don't. You take these and you assure yourself that you do. And even if you had, which is unlikely, all that you're supposed to have in the food, since this is compressed, this will make sure you double that. Remember, Dr. Howard we're going to have on, because I think if he tells you this, you maybe will feel even better about it than if I do, because, he's an expert. And Dr. Maria too. You can't have it. There's no such thing as overdosing on fruits and vegetables. It's not fentanyl. It's just plain good for you. It's like having too much water.
The good thing about this fruit is that it's not high in sugar as well for people who have sugar sensitivity.
100%.
Yeah.
And it gives you all those vitamins that you got to worry about with this pill, that pill, this pill, that pill. Today was a particularly long day. You know what I did this morning?
What?
I took 4 and 4.
Oh, okay.
Well, Dr. Howard takes like 8. So I figured if he can do that, I'm not going to hurt myself doing it. And when I called him a couple of weeks ago to see if I did occasionally want to double up, he said, absolutely. And it's the easiest way to make sure you have your daily requirement of fruits and vegetables. So please, please, please make sure you go to balanceofnature.com. What is it now, Ted?
And just be sure to use that promo code Rudy up to 35% off. And you're going to get all these fruits and vegetables packed into one little pill.
Same thing.
And you'll have the energy that you see the
Use
mayor.
promo code Rudy.
Showing.
You use that on My Pillow too. When you go get your My Pillows, you go ahead and get that too. Okay. All right.
That's right.
You got what I'm saying here.
Well, Mayor, we talked about we talked about this earlier. Of course, Senator McConnell was at a North Kentucky Chamber of Commerce event in Covington, Kentucky. And let's just play the video and maybe get some further reaction from you on what you see here.
Rob, take a look at this too. Who want to?
Yes.
Have you seen this?
No.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator. Benny.
okay.
Somebody else have a question? Please speak up.
So that's what happens when the string runs out. Look at the poor girl trying to, I don't think he even hears her. Look, he's not even moving his head toward her. Is he having a stroke? I wish Dr. Maria were here. We'll have a look at it tomorrow night.
That was unbelievable.
He does not, he finally looked at the man. He
still never said a word.
He hasn't moved. He's like stiff. Do they show him moving off? They don't.
No. I mean,
he
he
do-
does eventually come to.
Does he do a Biden going
And-
off? Like goes in this
and walks
direction,
with it.
that direction, this direction, that direction?
I don't know, but we did discuss this, Mayor. That's the second time that's happened.
Okay, so I'm telling you, if you're in the White House, you're saying to yourself, this could happen any day to us. This is what happens with dementia. It doesn't give you too many warnings.
But you certainly don't belong in a leadership role when you're having that kind of a problem.
Well, suppose it happens when America's being attacked.
Right. This is unbelievable.
But do you realize what horrible Americans the people around him are by letting him stay there?
Yeah.
They don't give a damn about us. Everybody in the White House should never be allowed to have public office ever again because they know he's like that.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, and I'm making it up. It's right in the book. I mean, it's right in the DSM-7, which is over there. DSM-5, it's over there.
Yeah,
And it tells you that it's unpredictable. Here's what's predictable. If you don't die as something else, you're going to go out. The lights are going to go out. Yeah. Let's say it had gotten, God forbid, a heart attack a year ago, then this wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have gotten here. But if Biden stays alive for other things, then whether he's in the White House at the time, he's out of the White House, or he's where he belongs in federal prison, this will eventually happen to him if he doesn't die first. The disease is inevitable and it's progressive, as I say, the way the Democratic Party is progressive. It's progressive and it deteriorates you like the Democratic Party deteriorates society. I don't know why they use the word progressive. It's retrogressive, but all right, okay. There's something seriously wrong with our judiciary. And because I'm involved in this litigation, I can only say a limited number of things about the judge who rendered a decision about me, which is quite extraordinary. Suffice it to say that I did not admit liability, nor did I admit that I lied, because I didn't lie. What I did was enter into a stipulation so we didn't have to try the case, so that we could bring the case up to the Court of Appeals and even to the judge, although I have no hope that the judge would even come close to even thinking about deciding the case in my favor, because there's no use in trying the case there. I mean, and I don't, if I had to, I would, but I believe that I have an excellent legal defense, that what I'm being accused of by these people who I believe actually did what I said they did, but that's irrelevant. It was a matter of opinion, and opinion is not defamation. And make it simple. The main part of the case is this whole film that was seen. The film came forward about 3 weeks after the election. No one had known that they had a security camera in the sports arena, and none of the crooked people who run Atlanta and Fulton County knew that. And on this particular day, they were counting ballots, and the law in Georgia says that when you're counting absentee ballots like this, you must do it in public. Now, if you looked at the earlier part of the video, you saw that in one corner of the arena, they technically complied with this provision by having a big walled off area or sectioned off area. And there you saw the public. And they were there all day, coming in and out, watching the proceedings, but quite deliberately not able to see anything except the general movement. They couldn't, for example, see what we needed to see, that a lot of the paper was phony. This is the same thing they did in Philadelphia. They wouldn't let one Republican had a whole group count out about 600,000 ballots, which a Republican couldn't get within 30 feet of, including disobeying a court order. By the time you get to the end of this election and the vote that Pence was presiding over, we can honestly say that in the disputed crooked Democrat states we never got to forensically examine a single ballot. And I knew why from the beginning, because those ballots had to be put in there very, very quickly because they were really behind the 8 ball. Remember, every state where they closed down the voting and they weren't supposed to, he was ahead. Every state where they closed down the voting, he lost. A little unlikely, huh? How about the one where he was 750 ahead? But that one, they had to come up with lots of paper. So we wanted to examine the paper with a forensic expert. I mean, one big thing that emerged from the testimony of people that we have affidavits from was that a lot of the paper, even though they were far away, they couldn't see any markings on the paper. They couldn't see any signatures, but they did see many, many papers that appeared to be pristine. By pristine, I mean they weren't folded. They were like this. Now, this cannot, by any set of circumstances, be an absentee ballot, because an absentee ballot has to be in an envelope. And it has to be in an envelope or it can't be counted, because the envelope has the signature. The ballot doesn't. You cast an anonymous ballot. So when you send it in an envelope. Before they open the ballot, they check the signature. Every time I ever participated in this, and you saw this if you watched 2000, the Chads, there's a Republican on one side and a Democrat on the other side. They open the ballot. First, they show the envelope. Now they do it with a computer. There's a computer printout of the signature. Oh, here's the signature. And I say, good. Democrat says, good. It goes in. I say, I object. It's put aside for a more detailed forensic analysis. That was not done with any ballot in Pennsylvania that anybody ever saw, or any ballot in Atlanta. It's the first election in history where in those two cities, Republicans didn't get to see a single damn piece of paper. We couldn't even get close enough to touch the paper in order to see whether it was folded or not. And what we really wanted to do is something called follow the science. We had an expert on quality of paper. The ballots were all sent out to a particular stationer. He had a certain quality of paper. There is a machine which he actually was able to tweak so that he could move it faster. That if you take the Georgia ballot and put it in this side, and then you load in the ballots that were submitted, the machine will kick out any piece of paper that's inconsistent with this piece of paper. So it will kick out ballots that were done on pieces of paper that were not provided by the state. So who provided them? Louis in the machine shop 2 blocks away, who we suspected, I'm giving you a name, that we suspected of printing these ballots up for 3 nights that nobody in Georgia would do a damn thing about. And our crooked attorney general, Barr, who says he investigated this, would not allow the U.S. attorney to investigate this. Now, we're going to get into Barr in a minute. This is also a big part of their phony case. So we never got to see a piece of paper. So when you look at what they did that night, they hid the ballots, and it was a desk that was maybe 3-4 times the size of this desk, with a gigantic, I've never seen a black blanket that big covering it all day. And as soon as everybody was kicked out, but only after they did 2 surveillances of the place, which I would call casing the joint, they rushed, lifted up the blanket, took out the ballots, and started furiously counting Nobody was checking signatures. You could see that because it was being done very fast. You couldn't see if they were pristine or not. I couldn't, at least. But you could see they were being counted in a very strange and suspicious way, from which you are entitled to have an opinion about that, to draw a conclusion that it was being done in such a suspicious way that there was something criminal about this. And there was, because what you had to know is that the law of Georgia makes that entire procedure illegal, which is why they were doing it so fast. Georgia law says the ballot must be counted in public or it is puff up. And those ballots, when they were checked against ballots cast during that period of time, were almost close to 100% Biden. And many of those ballots, just based on observations that were made and are contained in Senator Ligon's report, had only one name on it, Biden. They didn't vote for any of the Democrats. They say, why not? Because if you got to stuff in 30 or 40,000 phony ballots, you don't have time to fill out a whole ticket. Now, these ballots had to be attached earlier to a registration, which accounts for the large number of people, including the ones who testified before the Georgia Senate in the report of Senator Ligon, who, when they showed up to vote, were told, you already voted, because their registration was used to attach to the phony ballot so you could check it off. It also accounts for the number of people underage who voted. The underage people didn't vote. They went to the motor vehicle bureaus, they got their names, they registered them, and they had to go get registration wherever they could get them. You had a large number of people who moved out of the state who voted. But nobody wanted to hear this evidence because the governor and the attorney general were part of the fix. Now, you do know, but you don't, because they don't tell you this, that Raffensperger, the guy that Trump called, was a complete liar. Turns out 7-8 months after the election that he gets caught with a report laying out 48 irregularities in the election, including a total loss of chain of custody. Now, I don't know if you've ever been involved in chain of custody. I had to do it when I ran the narcotics division with drugs. The minute you lose a chain of custody in with a absentee ballot, since it's been detached from the signature, you can't go back and reestablish it. Now you can slip anything in there that you want because you can't check it against a signature. So in essence, the entire count of all those paper ballots is suspect. That's what the report says, but the report is afraid to say it because they would have gotten their necks chopped off. They just say words like highly irregular, very poorly conducted election, no chain of custody of any kind, many complaints about not being able to see ballots. So Raffensperger, who announced that this election was conducted fairly, I think even one time perfectly, was hiding in his desk, like the hard drive, a 48-page report explaining everything wrong with the election, which he never gave to me or to Trump or anyone else. Second, President Trump, when he made the phone call, had a report from a state senator who conducted a hearing with about 100 witnesses, of which we supplied about 30. They went and got the rest. He summarizes their testimony in a report that you should read. I'll see if I can get it for you. It's not that hard to read. It's about 40 pages. I'll give you the conclusion. The conclusion was there was overwhelming amount of cheating that went on, well more than enough to change the result in the election. That was the opinion of a distinguished state senator based on hearings with witnesses from Georgia. And the witnesses are outlined in the report. So I'm not supposed to believe that as his lawyer? I'm supposed to take that and say the senator was wrong? As his lawyer, I don't get to do that. as his lawyer, if a piece of evidence has the possibility of being helpful to him, I've got to further that evidence. Like, if I look at that tape and one explanation is they were innocent and the other was, no, they weren't. Why would they have it under a big, giant, black, look like a 2-mile blanket? Why would they only open it after everybody was thrown out? Why would they run around and look like a bunch of criminals when they were doing it, looking over their shoulder? And how did it turn out to all be for Biden? And why did they not allow Republicans to ever look at a piece of paper? I can't from that draw the opinion that it was a phony election. Jeez. I think I can. In America, I think I'm allowed to have an opinion. And opinions are not facts. They're not defamation. And that, I don't have to try to a jury. That I can try to a court, because you're not getting a fair trial in the District of Columbia. That's where I had to try it, in front of a judge that has put away January 6 defendants for so long. You would think they gave away the atomic secrets, and also keeping them behind bars with no bail, like we were not America. I mean, I, from the very beginning, knew I had no chance with it. So she found that I didn't comply with discovery, and then sort of entered a default judgment against me, which the press reads as, she decided the case against me. She never got to the facts of the case. We fought about thousands and thousands of requests for discovery, most of which had nothing to do with the case, all of which were done to harass by a Wall Street law firm that did this theoretically pro bono. Ha. Ha. And basically engaged in what has now become a Biden regime tactic, because they are part of the Biden regime. People involved are all connected to it, which is a punishment by process. You don't have to prove anybody did it. They didn't prove I did anything. The biggest thing I did was, she says I didn't turn over all of my electronic information. Well, I turned it all over that I had. She doesn't take account of the fact that for 2.5 years I didn't have it because the FBI took it from me. She doesn't account for the fact that the FBI stole my iCloud account and kept interfering with it for 4 years. And as a result of that, some information was missing. They probably caused it with their snooping around and spying on my account. She doesn't take account of the fact that they very suspiciously did it on the first day that I began representing Donald Trump, and they stopped doing it on the last day that I represented him, which means I was being used as a conduit to spy on Donald Trump. His lawyer was being used for that. This court isn't American enough to be outraged by that. So I entered the stipulation because I'm not going through a 5-month trial that I know isn't going to be fair and I'm not going to win, even though I'm entitled to. So I'm going to take my chances with the Court of Appeals, where maybe I can get lucky and I can get judges who are not infected with this horrible disease. Sorry, I got to defend myself somewhere, and I don't get a chance to do that. Nobody got a chance to do that in whatever has happened to the DC federal court, with all of those January 6 people being treated like the Japanese were treated during the Second World War, for what was a bad thing, but you have to admit, exaggerated way beyond what happened. 4 people were not killed by them. Nobody was killed by them. One of them was killed by the police, which they refused to investigate. A highly suspicious, possible first-degree murder. That we now know there were numerous government operatives inside the building, and they won't tell us how many. They won't turn over the tape. Every time they turn over a tape, it turns out they exaggerated whatever it was that happened. And it really is up for grabs who really organized it. Trump didn't. I've already been dismissed from that case by a judge who is a Democrat and is not afflicted by that disease. He said there was no evidence I had anything to do with the incitement, but I'm still suspended by the New York bar because I'm a danger, even though the judge concluded that if you calm down and you look at the record, I had nothing to do. And the words I used that were taken out of context and remain taken out of context every time the press writes about this is trial by fire. Now that sounds bad, right? Trial by fire. Except if I tell you that before I said it and after I said it, I was talking about trial by take the two machines, take a prototype machine that is secure, take the machine that was used, play them against each other. That's the trial by fire. Whoever wins, I said, if you win, I apologize. If I win, you go to jail. The crowd did not get angry. The crowd didn't jump up and down, as the judge noted. The crowd sat there for another 2 hours before they left. And he said Giuliani, who I don't think he likes very much, had absolutely nothing to do with January 6th. Yet, in the Georgia thing, there were all kinds of suggestions that I do, because they disregard that and they don't tell that part of the story. Please bring us America back, God. Please bring us back fair, just fair people that aren't afflicted with this horrible sickness. Now, they're doing something terrible to DeSantis in Florida with this horrible murder, this Jacksonville murder done by this insane guy who hates black people. They're blaming DeSantis. They say the guy was driven to doing this by statements and whatever. Now, to the extent that they've released all his papers, there's no statements in it. There's no statements they're pointing to. This is like what they did to Sarah Palin when the congresswoman was shot, and she had put out a map, and the map was something about that she was under jeopardy, and the person who did it never saw the map. So she couldn't have had anything to do with it, even though for 3 or 4 weeks, they made it appear as if the person who did it was inspired by Sarah Palin. The person never saw the map, didn't even know about it. Far more likely, the person that wanted to kill was it Justice Gorsuch, or no, it was which justice did, because Schumer mentioned that the hell was going to fall down on Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh was the other one, right? It wasn't Barrett. It was Kavanaugh. And of course, Kavanaugh had a person come there ready to kill him. I wonder if that person had heard Schumer. And why isn't he indicted?
Yeah, Schumer. There's a few doozies of Schumer. Well, Mayor, should we go to hear from QUX?
I think we
and
should.
then we should come back and
Wrap
put a
up.
bow on some of what's been a very busy
Oh my goodness!
day.
Yeah.
In the news.
The year is 2022. Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom as we know it has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside the big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quick's. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
With the drug dealers. So we've got a terrible immigration problem here. So I did want to defend DeSantis and say the idea that he's a racist is just an indication that the people accusing him are. Nothing racist at all about Ron DeSantis. Nothing racist about what he did. And he had no connection at all with this madman who did it. And you want to talk about unfairness and racism. So why don't they release the manifesto of the guy in Tennessee who was a what was he, a transvestite or transgender?
Transgender.
Or a trans something or other.
I don't know that they hide everything about that incident. I don't know, Mayor.
No,
right?
He was. And when asked if there was motivations attached to that, the sheriff there indicated, yes, I think he wanted to release it. And then the political crooks that run the place shut it down. Now, on the other hand, this guy's manifesto was released in 2 hours.
Yeah.
The other one hasn't been released in 4 months. And I don't know what it means, but he actually killed more people.
Gee, why does this seem like whenever it fits the media narrative, right? Where it's white on black crime, it's immediately out there. It's black and white, but it really, right? It's black and white. Immediately we identify the problem. It's white racism. That's it. Bingo. Anything else is just covered.
Because we do not live in a fair country any longer.
Or they think the people are that
and they are really sick people. They're communists. And they use race the way communists use class as a way to divide us. And we let them do it.
Right.
So one of the things that a lot of these Republican, like the pathetic ones like Christie and are counting on is that Trump can't get elected. He can't beat Biden. Well, first of all, 60% of Republicans think he's a shoo-in. Only 9% have any doubt about whether he can defeat Biden. So, I mean, he's talking to himself. And if anybody's going to beat Biden, it's not going to be Big Mouth. I mean, if you ran for governor of New Jersey, going out with the ratings he went out with, you get about 2% of the vote. And the way he's conducted himself in this election, I mean, there are a couple people who've done themselves a lot of good. I mean, Vivek has been very impressive. Senator Scott's been very impressive. I'd say Haley was pretty impressive in the debate the other night. Pence acted like he was overdoing it. He was trying to show, I'm a tough guy.
Yeah, easy cowboy, right?
Yeah.
But
easy cowboy.
The one guy that the consensus opinion was the one guy that lost the debate was Christie. I don't know what he's doing, still hanging around, shooting his mouth off. Just bitter. He's bitter. It's terrible to watch that. It's just terrible. But the unfairness gets into everything. It's like Biden's incompetence with regard to Maui, particularly when you listen, because I'm sure they conceal a lot of this. When you read what seeps through of how angry the people are in Hawaii, of how they were double-crossed by the federal government. You've got another Katrina there. And they've crucified Bush over Katrina. And this guy, I mean, Bush wasn't on the beach during Katrina. This guy was on the beach for most of it. He did a no comment when he first heard. Now they say he didn't hear it. But 2 days later, he got a chance to do it again. And he said no comment. But he didn't hear it then too? Now, is it that he doesn't hear it all? What kind of president? I mean, suppose somebody says, Mr. President, they're bombing Washington. Is he not going to hear it?
No, he won't.
Also, we are now told by the FBI that many of the people being picked up were brought in by ISIS. Remember ISIS? Terrorist group, which Biden is helping to revive. And in fact, we didn't know at the time. So, oh, gee, we let him get through. So now we're looking for him, but we're not sure what we're going to do when we find them. Because we're going to see, are they really bad people? Because they don't have any connection with ISIS. But you just told me that ISIS brought them in. Are you so stupid that you can't even read your own sentence? They do have a connection with ISIS. ISIS brought them in. Why? Because ISIS is like a charitable organization that wants to help refugees? We're talking about the FBI. We have 5,100 emails of the vice president that have been concealed, again, covered up by the archives. That's the group that's trying to frame, don't forget it, Trump in one of the cases where they're making it impossible for him, where they never did it with another president, and are saying nothing about the fact that Biden sent his classified documents to Chinatown. He might as well send them special delivery to Beijing. Who knows if it's probably one of the deliverables in the crooked contract that he made with China. $5,100 emails with names on it that were false names of the vice president. The only people who use false names 5,100 times are organized criminals, terrorists, and con men. Well, two of those definitions fit the Biden family, right? Robin Ware, Robert L. Peters, and J.R.B. Ware were communicating. Now, let's see who they were communicating with, and let's put out the communications. And if the communications are to his son, they better not be classified, because he better not have been given classified information to a security risk. And what about that? Wasn't that guy for 8 years a security risk, walking around constantly bonkers on cocaine and getting money from our enemies? And how about now? You want to make a bet if he's clean or not?
What happened to all these reporters?
His whole life, he's been in and out of. He hasn't been able to stay clean for any defined period of time, more than a month or two. You think he's clean now? What do you think the odds are that he's clean? Did anybody test him to allow him to go in the White House? To allow him to be around sensitive material that he could put his hands on? To be in the house that has the classified material in it that nobody's doing anything about with Biden? This country is so unfair. We better fix it if we want to keep it.
That's right, Mayor.
What are the feds hiding for Biden?
It's all by design.
That's right, Mayor. So, I mean, again, a very busy news day. We've entered soccer time. It's about quarter after.
Well, we will take a short break until tomorrow and see what.
So much news, man. We can never get through the whole.
No, because we're trying to get them. I mean, 3/4 of what we cover, you're not going to get anywhere else.
What about this judge? What about this judge? This sorority?
We got to finish with that.
You got it. Well, you got to.
Yeah, we got to finish with that. So, we showed Joe looking at his watch, right?
Yeah.
So, I want to see I want you to look at that picture.
Yeah.
I want to see how good you are. Can you figure out which one is not the woman? Because the judge handling this case didn't want to define woman. But here's what happened. This is a sorority at the University of Wyoming, a college sorority at the University of Wyoming. And the national chapter of the sorority allowed this man who had become a woman, but didn't become a woman because the man retained the sexual organ of a man. And don't tell me you're a woman if you have a penis, you're not. And I'm not stupid, they are, or brainwashed. So this woman, man, or whatever the hell she is, applied for the sorority. She's 6'2", 230 pounds. Take a look at her. You can see she towers over those little girls, right? Or it towers over the little girls, or he towers over the little girls. The name of the sorority is Kappa Kappa Gamma. The sorority, the girls live, in close proximity to each other, and they share bathrooms. And this man was allowed in because the national organization said it would be discriminatory to keep her out because she says she's a woman. And they don't have any other definition of a woman in their constitution. So the 6 girls, or 7, went to court to a federal judge who is 80-something years old. This is the part that's shocking. His name is United States District Court Judge Alan Johnson. He dismissed the case because the organization's bylaws do not define what a woman is. He said a federal court cannot interfere with the sorority chapter's freedom of association. By ruling against its vote to induct Artemis Langford in September 2022. With its inquiry beginning and ending there, the court will not define a woman today, the judge wrote.
But the name sorority defines that it's supposed to be women, right?
Right. It's the constitution of a sorority. The Webster's dictionary still, it'll be changed, I'm sure. A sorority is an association of females.
Yeah.
And females are then defined as human beings who have the requisite sexual organs
Yeah, define that
that
for me.
women have had since Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
like for 50,000 years. And then he says that the definition that the girls want, which is the 10,000-year definition, they're trying to inject a circumscribed definition. A circumscribed definition.
They make it up as they go along.
And they're the ones who say we should follow the science.
Right.
The biology here is clear as a bell.
Yeah. We're trying to follow the science, aren't we?
You're a man if you have the organs that are given to men,
Yeah.
and that men have had forever, and you're a woman
If you can have a child.
if you have the other organs.
Yeah.
And the mere fact that you've got to take massive drugs and you've got to mutilate your body to change shows you that that's the natural order of things. You don't just become a woman by saying, I'm going to be a woman. You got to get your body chopped up to do that. You got to get mutilated to
And
do
you're
that.
still not going to be a woman.
Oh, no, men can't give birth to babies.
No, I say no. I don't care what they say.
Oh,
I know. Let them come after me.
oh, oh.
So on that note, Mayor, another busy day.
Now,
I think we
I'm
made
gonna
it through
show
a
you-
good amount of our
now,
list.
You saw the 6'2", 230-pounder. He disputes this, but they put in evidence that he sits around
With his stuff
with
hanging
an
out.
erection.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the girls said, I know he's not a woman because that doesn't happen to a woman.
Yeah.
Seems pretty.
Sounds smarter than the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm worried about this judge. He's been going around for 87 years. He can't define a woman.
What if it-
87 years.
and they're supposed to be judges.
I wonder if this guy was married, had a wife and a kid. You could say, you know what a woman is? Your wife.
Yeah.
Hey, judge. Maybe the judge, he's 87. Maybe he's like McConnell.
You
Maybe
probably-
Oh,
maybe he
gosh.
forgot what a woman is.
They got to send that pastor over there. Remember that pastor? It's your mother.
Yeah. A woman is, you had 3 kids with that. That's a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
She has those things that babies
Yeah.
come from.
It's crazy.
Oh.
Why do they
well,
want
well.
to do this? What is this? I know this is Marx, but I mean,
Why did the
in
American
some
people
ways,
buy it?
some of the Marxist theories are very intricate and very sophisticated and can seduce you. This is just plain stupid. It's idiotic and a joke. Like when the drag queens come in with the kids. I mean, drag queens, it looks like somebody from, I better not say it, but it doesn't look serious. This is a joke.
This is what the schools are doing to people's mind. America.
These kids are dropping down to 27, 28, 29 and reading in the world. And we're bringing in drag queens.
If you teach,
I don't even think we teach them how to spell drag queen.
if the teachers are Marxists, maybe that's why Americans are losing their Americanism.
Well, that's why there's no question that the teachers union has for the longest time been the most communist union.
Yeah.
And I knew that way back in the 1980s. And tomorrow night, I'll tell you how. I'll tell you when I first became aware definitively of the communist associations of the major teachers unions. And it probably is probably one of their most effective and their most dangerous infiltrations of us, because without our paying attention to us, they brainwashed our children. And then they brainwashed a lot of these judges in these cases.
Yeah.
A lot of them are complete. You look in their eyes, they're brainwashed.
Yes. It's like
They can't think
the
rationally.
invasion of the body snatchers.
Yeah.
You're like, well, who are these people? How did they get here?
And it becomes purely 1984. The bad guys become the good guys and the good guys become the bad guys.
Yeah.
Just by changing the words.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much for listening in. We had an incredibly large audience last night. Hopefully we have again tonight. And you come back tomorrow and bring some people with you, because tomorrow, who knows what could happen? Man,
Something new every day, right, man?
we're working our way through it.
Yeah. Every
Can't
day.
wait for that election.
That's right.
Man, God bless America. Don't forget. Mm-hmm. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense.